past, where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to roll-out facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome back to the Bullvine Podcast, where we cut through the dairy industry noise to get you the insights that actually matter for your operation.
Yep.
We are not here to fluff up the numbers, and we certainly aren't here to give you the corporate line.
Well, we are not.
We're here to talk about what keeps the lights on, the milk in the tank, and, crucially for today, the name on the mailbox.
That's right. And today, we are diving deep into a feature piece titled Legacy in the Barn.
Right.
And I've got to tell you, when I first saw that title, my brain immediately went to, okay, here comes another dry lecture on wills, estate taxes, and legal jargon. I was ready to glaze over.
I had the exact same thought.
But this isn't that. This isn't about legal paperwork. This is about survival.
It really is.
Yeah.
We're talking about the elephant in the room, or,
What?
maybe the elephant in the parlor.
Right?
Succession. It's the topic that dominates coffee talk at every farm meeting, every conference, and frankly, every kitchen table across the country.
Oh, absolutely.
But usually those conversations are, they're full of emotions and assumptions. Today, we're bringing hard numbers to the table.
And the stakes couldn't be higher. We aren't just talking about keeping the farm name on the sign out front.
Right.
We're talking about whether the herd, the genetics you've spent 40 years building, the soil health you've cultivated actually survives as a business entity. Because as we are going to see, you can have the best will in the world and still bankrupt the next generation.
Exactly. And the tease here, the part that's going to make some people uncomfortable, is that the source material argues that trying to be fair to all your children is often the exact mechanism that kills the farm for the one child who stays. They call it a dispersal in slow motion.
That is a chilling phrase. Dispersal in slow motion.
Isn't it?
It means you don't sell the cows the day after the funeral, but you saddle the business with so much debt to pay off the non-farming siblings that you spend the next 10 years slowly bleeding out until you have to sell anyway.
It's a slow death by 1,000 cuts, financially speaking.
That's exactly what it is.
So let's unpack this. We need to start with the cold, hard reality of the odds we're facing.
Let's do it.
The source material drops a number right out of the gate that it sort of stops you in your tracks. 16.5%.
Yeah, 16.5%. That is the percentage of dairy farms that actually make it to the third generation.
It's shockingly low. Let's break down where that math comes from because it sounds almost unbelievable.
It does.
This comes from the University of Tennessee's workbook, something called Planning Today for Tomorrow's Farms. They look at family business research broadly.
So this isn't even just dairy specific. This is all family businesses.
Exactly. The rule of thumb, and this applies to hardware stores, construction companies, you name it, is that about 1/3 of family businesses survive the first transition, from founder to the second generation.
Okay, so you lose 2/3 right off the bat.
Gone.
That's already a staggering drop-off. You look around your township, and for every 3 new barns going up, only 1 is going to have the son or daughter running it in 20 years.
It's a sobering thought. And it gets worse.
How?
Because of that 1/3 that survives, only another 1/3 survives the second transition to the third generation.
So a third of a third.
A third of a third. You do the math and you land at roughly 16.5%.
That is brutal.
It is.
When you think about it, you look around your county, look at 6 of your neighbors. Statistically, only 1 of you is going to have grandkids running that same operation.
Right.
It puts a real damper on the romantic idea of the century farm.
It's brutal, but it's also a reality check.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about why.
Yeah, it's not just bad luck.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. The source material points to a few specific drivers, and one of them is just the sheer grind of the industry.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is where the rubber meets the road. You can show me spreadsheets all day, but dairy is a 365-day-a-year mental and physical marathon. The source mentions a 2024 doctoral thesis from the University of Manitoba. They studied farmers in Western Canada and Ontario, and the findings are, well, they're validating, but they're sad.
What stood out to you in that study?
The stress. High reports of injuries, chronic aches, but mostly the mental load. And here's the kicker.
What's that?
The stress levels weren't significantly different whether you were in a tyke stall barn or a fancy new freestall, or whether you milked in a parlor or had robots.
That is interesting, because the sales pitch for robots is always better lifestyle, less stress.
Always.
You invest $1 million in those blue or red boxes, and you're supposed to be sipping margaritas on a beach, right?
Right. But the study found that the stress comes from the responsibility and the economics.
Not the physical labor itself.
No, it's the weight of the debt, the volatility of the milk check, the weather. You can't robot your way out of a market crash.
Right.
And the point is, the kids see this. They live it.
That's the kitchen table sentiment the article talks about.
Exactly. If your kids grow up watching you drag yourself into the house at 9:00 p.m. after dealing with a prolapse or a broken scraper,
Yeah.
and then they see you sitting at the table stressing over cash flow because the butterfat dropped 2 points,
Yeah.
they absorb that. They aren't blind.
They see the cost. Not the financial cost, but the human cost.
A human cost. That's a great way to put it.
The quote in the article really hit home for me. It was a young person saying, I love the cows and the genetics, but I'm not sure I want to live exactly like my parents did.
And you can't blame them. You just can't. That is the first hurdle. Before you even get to the bank, you have to convince the next generation that this is a life worth living.
It's true.
If we don't address the lifestyle and the burnout, the rest of this conversation is academic because there won't be anyone to take over.
A really good point. So we have the human element, the burnout, the low odds. Now, let's pivot to the financial reality, because this is where that fairness trap really starts to form.
The numbers.
The numbers. Dairy has become intensely capital heavy.
Capital heavy is a polite way of saying it's incredibly expensive just to exist in this industry.
Right. The source cites a 2021 Agriculture Journal paper. It was looking at data from Catalonia, but it mirrors what we see in North America. Dairy carries the highest fixed capital land and buildings compared to almost any other ag sector.
Think about it. If you're growing corn and soybeans, you need land and machinery. You need storage bins.
Sure.
But you don't need a milking parlor. You don't need complex manure handling systems for liquid waste. You don't need distinct facilities for calves, heifers, dry cows, and lactating cows.
All those specialized expensive buildings.
And in Canada, you have the massive capital cost of quota on top of all that.
And land values are only going one way.
Yep.
USDA numbers, provincial numbers, they all show rising land values due to urban sprawl and competition from crop farmers. So on paper, the dairy farmer looks rich. The balance sheet is huge.
Land rich,
Yeah.
cash poor. It's the oldest cliche in farming because it's true.
It is.
And that is where the danger lies for succession.
So let's look at the ROI, the return on assets. This is where it gets really interesting. The source brings in the 2024 Minnesota Finman report.
Okay.
Now, 2024 was actually a decent year for dairy compared to 2023.
Yeah.
Net income was up, milk price was up.
It was a breather year. We finally caught a break. A little one.
A little one. But, and this is a huge but, the average Minnesota farm return on assets was only 2%.
2%.
2%.
You know, if I went to a generic financial advisor in the city and said, I have a business with millions of dollars in liability, incredible physical risk, 365-day labor requirements, and I'm going to make a 2% return on my assets, they would tell me to liquidate.
They'd laugh you out of the office.
They'd tell me to put the money in a high-yield savings account.
Right. You could get 4% or 5% in a safe bond right now with zero work. So why do farmers do it?
Because it's not just an investment, it's a livelihood, it's a legacy, and honestly, on a cash flow basis, you can make a living.
You can pay the bills?
You can pay your bills, you can buy groceries, you can send kids to college, but 2% leaves zero slack. It means the margin for error is razor thin.
And that 2% figure is the linchpin. It is the core reason why the fairness strategy fails.
This is the heart of it.
This is the core of the deep dive today. We need to follow the money to understand why treating your kids equally in the will destroys the business.
Let's run the numbers. The article lays out a hypothetical 400-cow scenario.
And this is key. For everyone listening, even if you're milking 50 cows or 5,000, the ratios hold up. The math scales.
That's right.
So here's the math. You have a 400-cow herd. Based on Finbean averages, the asset breakdown looks something like this. You've got $2 million in land and buildings.
Okay, that's reasonable.
You've got $800,000 in cows and replacements. And you've got roughly $700,000 in machinery.
So total assets sitting around $3.5 million. That sounds about right for a modern, reasonably equipped 400-cow dairy.
Exactly. Now, let's say the parents have 4 kids. One wants a farm. We'll call them the successor. The other 3 have moved away, got jobs in town.
It's a typical story.
Right. Maybe they come back for harvest, but they aren't owners. The parents want to be fair. And to them, fair means equal dollar value.
Which is the default setting for most parents. I love my kids equally, so they get equal shares. It makes emotional sense.
It does. So $3.5 million divided by 4 kids is $875,000 per kid.
Okay. So the successor gets their $875,000 share, which is great. But to keep the farm, they have to buy out the other 3 siblings.
Exactly. The successor has to come up with cash to pay the other 3. That is 3 times $875,000.
So that's
a $2.6 million debt.
just pause there for a second. The successor, who is likely already working for below market wages to help the farm succeed, now has to go to the bank and borrow $2.6 million just to keep the doors open.
That's right.
They aren't buying a new parlor. They aren't buying more land. They are buying the right to keep working.
They're buying the equity that they probably helped build in the first place.
Yes. And now here's where the cash flow crunch hits.
Let's talk about that. Servicing a $2.6 million debt principal and interest, you are looking at annual payments of roughly $250,000 to $300,000.
Okay, let's translate that to the milk check. Put it in terms a farmer understands.
Let's do it per cow. If you break that down by cow, that debt load is costing you $600 to $750 per cow per year.
$600 to $750 per cow every single year. That is insane.
And now you have to compare that to the profit.
Yeah.
The FinBeyond report showed that high profit herds, the best of the best, the top 20%, they made about $773 per cow in net return.
Whoa. Let me just restate that to make sure everyone heard it.
Please do.
The profit you make on a cow in a good year is roughly $770. The debt payment you have to make just to pay off your siblings is $750.
Correct. You have $20 left per cow.
$20.
For the entire year.
That is the slow motion dispersal. You have taken 100% of the profit out of the business and mailed it to the non-farming siblings.
It's gone.
That leaves $0 for replacing the skid steer when it dies, $0 for upgrading the ventilation, $0 for fresh cow protocols.
And, God forbid, milk prices drop or feed costs spike.
Right. If you have a bad year, you're underwater immediately. You're cannibalizing equity just to make the buyout payments. This is why I called it a death sentence earlier.
Right.
You cannot expect a business generating a 2% return on assets to pay out 75% of its equity at full market value. The math simply does not work.
It's mathematically impossible. So the parents feel good because they were fair. The non-farming kids feel good because they got a nice check.
And the farming kid goes bankrupt in 5 years.
Or, more likely, they struggle for 10 years, living in poverty, letting the facilities degrade until they finally burn out and sell.
The slow bleed.
The slow bleed.
Yeah.
So how do we reframe fairness? The source material references Farm Credit Canada and a specialist named Rick Roosboom. He has a great line.
What is it?
$1 million in assets is not $1 million in cash.
That is the crucial distinction. That needs to be on a billboard.
It does. The non-farming kids need to understand that their sibling isn't inheriting a lottery ticket.
No.
They're inheriting a job, a very expensive, high-risk job.
And a mountain of responsibility.
The article also talks about sweat equity. This is a huge piece of the puzzle.
Huge.
We need to acknowledge that the child who stayed often accepted lower wages for years, contributing to the growth of those assets.
Absolutely. If the farming son or daughter has been working for $40,000 a year when they could have been making $80,000 in town as a heavy equipment operator,
Right.
that difference is an investment they made in the farm. That $3.5 million asset base exists partly because of their underpaid labor. To turn around and charge them full market value for it is actually unfair. It's charging them twice for the same equity.
That's a fantastic point. You're buying what you already helped build.
Exactly.
So this brings us to the solution phase. We've identified the problem. The math doesn't work. But the 16.5% of farms that survive, they do something different.
They have to.
They use different structures.
Right. You don't have to just hand over the deed and a massive mortgage. The most common structure the article highlights, especially in Canada and increasingly in the U.S., is separating the business into a holding company and an operating company.
The two-company model. Let's break that down. How does it work?
Okay. Think of it as two separate buckets. Bucket A is the holding company.
Okay.
This is where you put the heavy assets, the land, the buildings, and in Canada, the quota. The parents or the family trust own this bucket.
So the parents keep their name on the land.
Oh.
That provides them security.
Exactly. It's their retirement fund. They're landlords. Then you have bucket B, the operating company.
And what's in that bucket?
This company owns the cows, the feed, the small machinery, and the checking account. The successor buys this company.
Ah, so they're not buying the land.
Not right away.
Why is that better?
Because the operating company is where the cash flow is. It's where the turnover happens. The successor can afford to buy the cows and the feed because those assets generate immediate cash. They aren't drowning in the debt of buying $2 million worth of land that has a 2% return.
So the successor runs the show, owns the cows, pays the bills. What is the relationship with the holding company?
The operating company pays rent to the holding company.
Like any other business renting a building.
Precisely. That rent becomes the parent's retirement income. It's a clean, business-like transaction.
That makes so much sense. The successor focuses their capital on high turnover assets, cows, butterfat, managing somatic cell counts, rather than serving a massive mortgage on dirt.
And it allows for a gradual transition. Eventually, the successor might buy shares in the holding company over 20 years, or maybe upon the parents' passing, the non-farming kids inherit shares in the land company and just collect rent.
Like passive investors.
Exactly. While the farming kid runs the operating company, it separates the business of farming from the business of owning real estate.
That distinction is key, and it leads perfectly into the next big decision the survivors make: building a leader. The article makes a strong point that you can't just treat the successor as a grunt for 20 years and then hand them the keys.
This is a pet peeve of mine.
I can imagine.
You see it all the time. The boy is 45 years old, but dad still signs every check and decides when to cut the hay.
Right.
That is not a succession plan. That is a servitude plan.
The source cites a 2018 rural sociology article from the UK that talks about the value of off-farm experience.
Yes.
It suggests that young farmers who leave and come back bring an entrepreneurial mindset.
I cannot stress this enough. If you are a young person listening to this or a parent, get off the farm. Go work for someone else.
Why is that so valuable? Is it just about seeing how others do it?
It's about accountability. When you work for your dad and you mess up, you might get yelled at dinner, but you probably won't get fired.
Good point.
When you work for a stranger, you learn real accountability. But more importantly, you learn different systems.
The article gives some great examples of that.
It does. Working as a herdsman elsewhere, you might learn totally different fresh cow protocols.
Right, or a different breeding strategy.
Exactly. Go work on a 2,000 cow dairy. See how they manage transition cows. See how they handle employee scheduling. Or go work for a genetics or nutrition company.
And learn the business side.
Learn to read components. Learn to calculate cost per hundredweight.
The Brazilian study mentioned calls this absorptive capacity, the ability to bring new knowledge home.
It's seeing the world outside your own lane. If you only know how your dad did it, you will only do what your dad did. And in this market, that's not enough.
You have to innovate.
You need to be able to come home and say, hey, I worked at a place that used sand bedding, and their somatic cell count was half of ours. Here is the math on why we should switch. That is leadership.
And once they come back, the article insists on a trial management period.
Yes.
Not just welcome home, here's a shovel, but here are the keys to a department.
This is huge for the lenders, too. The article outlines a 2-year trial. You don't just say you're in charge. You say, okay, for the next 2 years, you are in charge of fresh cows.
And you track specific metrics. The source suggests tracking transition disorders, early cull rates, and peak milk.
Real numbers, tangible results. If the early cull rate spikes under their watch, you have a problem to solve. If peak milk goes up, you have a win.
Hand them the cropping.
Right. You decide the seed varieties, you manage the harvest crew, then we measure forage quality and cost per ton of dry matter.
It validates that the successor isn't just a last name, they're a manager.
Exactly. When you walk into the bank for that succession loan and you can show a binder that says, in the 2 years my son ran the cropping program, our relative feed value went up 15 points and our cost per ton went down.
The banker's going to listen.
The banker's going to say, where do I find?
It's de-risking the whole proposition for them.
Totally.
Let's look at the bigger picture now. We have the structure, we have the leadership training. But who helps putting this all together? This can be overwhelming.
It's a lot.
The source introduces a concept from Ireland, from TGASC, called multi-actor succession teams.
I love this concept because right now in North America, the typical succession planning process is a mess of mixed signals.
How does it usually go? Walk me through the disaster scenario.
You go to your accountant and they say, do this to save taxes. Then you go to your lawyer and they say, do this to protect the estate.
Okay.
Then you go to the lender and they look at the plan and say, we can't finance this. There is no cash flow.
And the family is stuck in the middle, playing telephone between all these advisors.
Exactly. The TGASC model puts them all in one room at the same time. The accountant, the lawyer, the lender, and crucially, a family coach or facilitator.
The benefit seems obvious. You stop the he said, she said.
And you get a reality check. The lawyer might draft a beautiful will that splits the assets 4 ways, and the lender can speak up right there and say, if you sign that, I will have to foreclose on the farm the day you die because the business cannot service that debt. You need that conflict to happen in the planning room, not at the funeral home.
That's powerful. It forces a practical solution, not just a legal or tax one.
It forces a viable solution.
That brings up the toughest scenario of all. What if there is no successor? What if the kids, despite your best efforts, just don't want it?
It happens. And it is happening more often, but the default reaction is usually panic, followed by a total dispersal sale.
The auctioneer comes in and everything goes.
Everything. The article suggests there are other ways to exit with your legacy intact.
Like what?
It mentions things like land access policy incentives and the transition incentives program.
Okay, what does that mean in plain English?
It means there are young people out there desperate to farm who don't have the capital to buy in. You can look at long-term leases. You can look at a staged sale to a key employee. Maybe that herdsman who has been with you for 15 years and treats the cows like his own.
So phasing out ownership while keeping the land.
Yes. Maybe you sell the cows and machinery to a young neighbor, but you keep the land and sign a 20-year lease. You get the rental income, the neighbor gets a land base without a $2 million mortgage, and your land stays in production.
It's not the dynasty you might have dreamed of.
No, but it keeps the farm alive. It keeps your legacy in the barn.
We have covered a lot of ground here, from the brutal 16.5% statistic to the fairness trap, to the holding company structure.
A lot to chew on.
It is. Now, I want to get tactical.
Let's do it.
All right, a farmer's listening to this right now. They just finished milking. They're driving to the feed store. What are the 3 concrete things they need to do to avoid being a slow-motion dispersal?
Okay. I've broken this down into immediate, medium, and long-term.
Perfect. Start with immediate. This week?
Immediate, the agenda and the question. First, put succession on the official meeting agenda, not the dinner table chat, the business meeting. Write it down.
Make it official.
Make it official. Second, the next time you see your accountant or lawyer, look them in the eye and ask, how many farm successions have you structured in the last 5 years?
That is a bold question.
It is necessary. If they say, oh, 1 or 2, or we do mostly standard wills, you need to find a specialist. You wouldn't let a foot trimmer do surgery on a twisted stomach. Don't let a generalist lawyer do surgery on your multi-million-dollar business.
Oh, good analogy. Okay, medium term. 3 to 6 months out.
Medium term. The timeline and the fair talk. Sketch out the timeline. Write down your age and your successor's age. Identify a step-back date. Be honest. When does dad stop signing checks?
Put a date on the calendar.
Yes. And then have the fair versus equal conversation before the lawyers drop the papers. Ask the non-farming kids what fair looks like to them. You might be surprised.
They might not want what you think they want.
They might just want a cottage on the lake or help with a down payment on a house. They might not want to bankrupt their brother.
Great point. And long term, 1 to 2 years.
Long term. Structure and metrics. Document the leadership. Assign specific areas like we talked about, reproduction or cropping, and track the KPIs. Prove the successor can run it. Build that binder for the bank and investigate the 2-company structure. Talk to that specialist you found about separating the holding company from the operating company. Build a structure that protects the parent's retirement without strangling the successor's cash flow.
That is a powerful checklist. It moves this from a vague worry to a manageable project.
That's the goal. We have to stop treating succession like a taboo subject, like it's about death.
Right.
It's a business process. Treat it like one.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening deep dive. The difference between the 16.5% who make it and the rest. It isn't luck.
No, it's planning. It's structure.
It's having these tough conversations.
Absolutely. Remember, if your succession plan relies on a 2% ROA business paying off 100% of its equity, you aren't planning a legacy. You are planning a sale.
For the full breakdown and more straight-talking analysis, head to www.thebullvine.com. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
We are out with new episodes every day.
Keep your boots clean and your pencil sharp.
Coming up next, we're going to be talking about genomic selection. Is it hype or is it the only way to stay competitive? You won't want to miss it. Thanks for listening.